Hi, everybody. This is Nicole. I just wanted to start this by saying thank you so much for tuning in to this and for supporting the film and just being your lovely, wonderful selves. I was very nervous on the day that we filmed this and totally butchered the intro, so this is my makeshift intro. And thank you so much to Kat and Florencia and Kevin for being a part of this podcast and taking time out of their days to talk with me about some heavy stuff and some fun stuff, and our experiences working on the film from start to finish. This film completely changed my life, and Kat and Florencia and Kevin have their own journeys on the film, and it was really beautiful to be able to discuss that with them and see how much of an impact a piece of art can have on people's lives, and it can become so much bigger than what you initially thought that it would be. And yeah, I'm just constantly grateful for the opportunity to work on this film with people that I care about and collaborate with them and have it turn into something so much bigger than what just I could have thought up in my head, collaborating with these incredible artists. So now I'm rambling, but for the crew that showed up to help film, I'm very, very grateful. And yeah, I just hope that you all enjoy this little chat that we had. This is part 1. There will be a part 2. And just as like a heads up, within this podcast, we do talk about eating disorders and lightly touch on like substance abuse and stuff. So I just be aware of that. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
My name is Nicole Santiago. I am the writer and the director of I Dreamt of This, Esther. I'm joined today by our beautiful cast and our DP. We have Catherine Verblud. Is that how you say it?
Verblud.
Verblud.
But I like the way you said it.
Who plays Esther. We have Florencia Barletta, who plays Helen. And we have our director of photography, Kevin Miguelez.
Hello, hello.
I wanted to bring us all here today to just kind of talk about our experiences on the film, because I feel like they're so different than, or so insulated. You know, we each had a very personal experience with the film, I think. So I thought it would be cool for us to talk about it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
So I wanted to start with each of our first experiences, maybe like reading the script, figuring out what the story is, and what each of you wanted to bring to the story personally.
Well, I first heard about this audition notice on Backstage, and the moment that I read the synopsis or what the story is about, it captured me. And I was so intrigued. Also by the name Esther, I don't know. I was just so, like, it was just calling me. And I went out of my way to even write a letter about how interested I was in doing an audition and meeting you. And I'm so grateful that you gave me the opportunity, even in the audition, because I messed up the audition. But I thought it was hilarious because you felt so connected to what I gave you.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you did. And then we started with the concept that we didn't know if the film was fully going to be a film or just like what the concept was going to be. And I remember first reading it. It was so intense. And from the moment I read the concept, I already felt the essence of what the rest of the film was going to be. Mm-hmm. It had the intensity. It had the animalistic behavior, the primal behavior that pretty much the film kind of carries throughout the whole thing. And I saw everything pretty clearly. I felt like your writing was very imaginative and very just real.
Oh,
There's no other way around it. It was just real. And I could tell that this story wasn't just like no other ordinary story. It was a personal story. And I have a thing as an actor, I have a thing for personal stories. My heart just melts for them. And I just knew I had to jump on the bandwagon in any way. Even if I wasn't going to be the actor, like I just wanted to be in the space. And I'm just happy to be here. So, yeah.
thanks, Kat. Okay, so same question to you, Florencia.
And I have to follow that. Oh God. Okay. Well, thank you.
She's great, guys.
Thank you for having us here. I think this is great. My first podcast, so
Me too.
awesome. So you reached out to me for this project, and I was extremely excited to get a call from a director to reach out about this. And when I read, and originally it was just to do the proof of concept, and we would see from there.
Mhm.
And right away when I read what you sent over, it grabbed me from the get-go, because I think that just the whole subject of the film with the eating disorders, it's very important, a very important voice that needs to be heard by people, and it needs to give a way to conversation. I think that when I read it, I definitely connected. I probably connected more with Esther than with Helen, which
That's a good thing.
it was a good thing, and that's kind of an exciting thing to then play the other side of the role, or the mom, and with her control issues and whatnot. But yeah, I was excited from the beginning. When we started doing the proof of concept, it was just exciting to be in that space, and every time you read the script, or I read the script, I got new things that, because you go deeper and you start thinking about it, and it was exciting to do something that brought a little horror and a little not horror, but different genres, I think.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was excited from the beginning, and very happy that then it went to do a short, and I think it's going to be extremely well received to whoever watches.
Thank you.
I think so too.
What about you? When was the first time that, or what was your first experience like?
So
I mean, I know when I first told you or like showed you my idea for the story, and I don't know what your
Yeah.
thoughts are from.
So
that.
the first time that you brought this information to me was like the end of the day at the equipment room. You're I don't know if you were working there at the time yet, but
No. I was just hanging around.
yeah, just hanging around. And I mean, like there was talks around about like who's pitching the next semester for workshop, this and that. But I don't recall you ever like speaking loudly like, oh, I want to pitch or I want to do this. But I remember one day you came up to me and you were like, hey, like I have this idea for a script. It's very, like loosely noted, but I want to share this with you and let me know what your thoughts are. I mean, from the first glance, it was like, oh, okay. There's a lot of like substance within what you're writing, separate from the idea of like who's writing it, and like our friendship at the time. Like I could see certain things being like revealed, but at the same time you approached me about the script, so I read it for what it was, and it seemed like there was a lot of like substance there. You're speaking about something that's like significant not only for like an individual, but like Florencia was saying, like it's a very important topic to be talked about. You've said once that it's like a taboo. And I think it is. A lot of people may experience things that fall into the habits of like an eating disorder, and they're not aware. I thought there's a lot of potential here. And at that point, I mean, there was no indication that like I would be DP or anything like that. it was
But
more of
I
like a
knew.
writer to a writer.
But I knew, she says.
She had it planned.
I did.
So yeah, eventually when you did ask me for that, like I was kind of honored, because at the same time, like, I mean, this is probably my first time DPing since like film 3, but I've known there's a lot there is a lot that I know that I haven't been able to exhibit in any kind of fashion. So I was honored that you would ask me, and then two, it was, the pressure of like, okay, I got to do this right, not only for like my like there's two things that I'm doing it right for. I'm doing it right for you, but I'm also doing it right for me. But I'm glad you asked me, because it was a very exhilarating experience.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't think at that time I had revealed like the personal part of the story to you. But I did know, I feel like that was after I saw Soft Driven Mad. I saw that film and like that blew my mind. That was like, oh, I didn't know like we could do something like this. Like I thought this was above what students could do. You also had a story that I felt I resonated with, because it wasn't just one thing, and it, like, you could see that it was very personal and there was stuff underneath there and it was very layered, but like it was kind of abstract and artistic, and there wasn't like, it wasn't horror, it wasn't drama, it wasn't like, it wasn't one thing, it was just like you. And so when I asked you about like, your thoughts on my idea, it was with the intention of asking you to be DP eventually, but but also just because I don't know, I really trusted your vision at that moment, and your creative mind.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I think from seeing everything develop, and from everybody that worked on this film, from my point of view, I imagine that on those first steps, when you're showing your idea, your script that might need to be developed a little bit more or whatnot, you are opening, even though you might not be comfortable at the time how much you're going to share, but you're going to be sharing an idea, which ideas kind of stem from, well, our experiences, probably mostly, maybe somebody else, but usually somehow or there's some connection to our
There's some
experiences.
similarity in that.
So
Yeah.
you're opening up to a lot of people that, and each time things may open up more clearly. The door, it's like a door opening just a little bit until, the door's open.
Yeah.
And in that, I feel like when I started this film, and when I started and read, going back to what I had said earlier, when you asked me, I think I shared with you, yeah, that's something that I also, have suffered with. But I feel like throughout the time that we did the film, and then talking to people that were asking me what I was doing, it was like a door open, and then like open, like I can now like kind of feel way more comfortable in the space of saying, this is something that affected me, affects me. And so I thank you for opening that door with
No,
your
thank
story,
you.
or with your beginnings of the story. So thank you, Nicole.
It's not an easy story to talk about and open up about. Some people never really ever talk about it, and who knows how many people in the world are struggling in that way and never go about their day to even tell someone that. So it's very vulnerable, so I understand why at first it might have been a scary thing to come out with something like that, but I am extremely honored that you did that, because you're paving the way for people who don't have a voice.
Thank you guys. I mean, in a very real sense, like, shared this part of my life with that I have struggled like with eating disorders. I'd never spoken about it before. And then like when I would meet with you guys, like I would just find myself like you made me feel comfortable enough to open up to them, and you guys made me feel comfortable enough to open up even more. And I would just share like these like really hard things that I'd never said out loud before with you guys. So it was really cool to kind of go through all that with you guys as well, and that you also had similar experiences of being able to open up. So thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Kevin.
Thank you guys.
And thank you, crew. They're all behind the cameras.
Amazing.
What are some kind of things that like you guys found inspiration with when you first learned about the film and going through the script and everything? Like, where did you kind of pull inspiration from?
So for me, I saw a lot of movies. The first movie was X. I know it has nothing to do with this film, but Mia Goth was in it. And Mia Goth was like a very inspirational person in the sense of she has done a lot of horror and a lot of psychological suspense. And that's why I kind of looked up to her for this role, because she's the one that I would imagine would take on a role like Esther. So she was a huge inspiration. And then I also saw The Black Swan. Incredible film, and it explores the depths of it actually, to me personally, it explores the depths of eating disorders and the mother-daughter relationship that I was trying to kind of understand for this film. And The Black Swan has a lot to do with all that. So yeah, that was very inspiring. And then I remember you told me that I needed to watch Persona.
Yes.
And I did. And Persona was like very eye-opening because it's such a classic film. But because it's such a classic film, it's so intriguing because it's all in black and white and it's just two women and they somehow like morph into each other by the end of the film. There's this sense of like a yin yang thing going on, like they blend into each other.
Yeah.
And at some point you don't know who is who leads what life. And I feel like in this film there are moments where Esther and her mother kind of turn into each other, almost like some kind of reflection. So yeah, those 2-3 movies were very inspiring for me to take on this role.
Nice. I'm glad you mentioned Persona, because that one, like,
I wanted to.
I watched that. I think I was still writing, and I watched it with you. And
Incredible.
it, like you said, it's like such a classic film, but there's so many elements that make you so uncomfortable. And it's so simple. It does it by just like holding on a shot a little too long, or like
Almost like stillness.
yeah. And that was a huge inspiration for me going into the film and talking to Kevin about like the shots and everything, of just sort of letting things breathe and letting things be quiet, because in those quiet moments, that's when like you really feel the tension between Esther and Helen. And like you said, like it also talks about like mirroring each other and how we kind of are reflections of each other in certain ways, and like how mothers and daughters are kind of reflections of each other.
Yeah, especially I think in this particular Helen and Esther, I mean, it's exactly that. It's that yin yang. It's like it's a very poised, knowing what she wants, very much in control, but also very toxic and trying to control. Like she has so much control even in her life, and wants to control her daughter so much so. But at the same time, I think that she is envious of her daughter, that there's an envy part there.
Yeah.
Because there's almost an innocence. There's an innocence to Esther, and Helen doesn't have that anymore.
Exactly. So I think, like she is seeing her life go away, the losing of control because her daughter's leaving, but trying, like, also grasping the control when she comes back and making sure that she has it.
Yeah.
And that somehow Helen makes sure that she's going to debilitate her daughter enough to need her, which is what I did.
Yeah, it's like a
But
chess game.
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so this was my first role. I mean, I've been many moms in many roles, but this was the first time that I got to like really play with that like duality of being a mom and caring and loving and showing that, but at the same time having
Being
a very
fucking scary.
opposite scary side. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was fun to do.
Yeah. You're good at it, man.
No, and in some of the clips, like you're not like the nicest person as Helen, but like you look badass.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited.
You look, yeah, you do.
I think my actual kids, especially one of them, can actually say that I can get kind of crazy.
Yeah, man.
I feel like all moms are like that.
If you
though.
push the right buttons, you'll get a
Yeah,
earful.
the mama bear will come
Yeah,
out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so was there anything that you kind of pulled from to jump into that?
I think so. I mean, having the experience of being a mom and having kids, and I just, there's particular points in my life with my kids growing up, whatever the case would have been, where they press the button that just spirals, the craziness. And even though it was not that here, but like, I had to tap into that
Yeah.
to get Helen there to that crazy. But as far as I mean, I was just remembering that my audition was actually like a monologue from Heredity, right?
Yeah,
And I,
Hereditary.
and I remember I called you and I'm like, wait, I wasn't sure. I had not.
Yeah.
And I was like,
know this.
what is this about?
Yeah.
Oh my
It was
God.
that long monologue. Yeah.
Yeah, because we all got different monologues. I got one from Shameless, and I had no idea.
Okay. Yeah, mine
I had
was
no idea.
Heredity.
Yeah.
So at that time, I really like right at the beginning. That's as much as I knew until maybe you saw that and then said, okay, yeah, this is the person that I want to give this chance to.
Yeah.
But for me, like points of inspiration is there aren't that many movies about this.
It's hard.
At all. So for
Yeah.
me, points of inspiration were looking on YouTube and just writing in different like not dyslexia, bulimia and anorexia and there's a lot there's a lot of stuff happening. I mean, not happening, but that is available to see. And yeah, so that like just looking a little bit about that, then and I know that we're probably gonna touch on the documentary Thin, and just looking at all that and having that in my head, and plus personal experience of dealing with all that. That was kind of probably like the main reason why, and what gave me the inspiration to say, hey, yeah, I want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you have your own experiences with.
Throughout my life, I am 51 years young. Thank you. No, but throughout my life, I remember when I got to being 13, the teenage years, and that's when things change and puberty and all this. And I remember like from there, I've always been struggling. Maybe it's a too big of a word, but it isn't, because everybody struggles in their cup or whatever, whether it's a lot or a little, but struggling with self-image and self-love and self-worth, and it's all related to self-image and what you see of yourself and how you love yourself, and accepting, and maybe having people around you that are very strict about something will, make you less accepting of yourself, and then therefore creating an eating disorder. And I've been through both.
Yeah.
I've dealt with anorexia and I've dealt with bulimia, and it's always there. Whether you have control of it or you don't, but it's always there. And I mentioned this before as well. It's a disorder like if you're dealing with alcoholism or if you're dealing with drug addiction, they're terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that they're accepted, but
They're more
they're out
talked
there, they're
about.
talked
Yeah.
about, and if somebody, if you tell somebody, yeah, I'm a recovering alcoholic, you can be a recovering alcoholic and you just say no more alcohol, and somebody's like, hey, good, but like you can't not
Yeah.
ever eat again. So it's learning to live with that and figure out what works with you that doesn't push you over the edge and trigger you to go into an episode, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely important to be out there. And every time we talk about this, I feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
really grateful that you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Especially like talking to somebody who is, has been through it, like, and is okay.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like it'll be okay. 'Cause it's hard, man.
Yeah, and it is okay. And the thing is, it's always going to be there, though.
Yeah.
So it's always there, and it's okay. And you just have to learn how to deal with it. And there's days that there's huge long time frames that you're going to deal with it great, and there's other times that life and stress and personal things will weigh on to push you over like the edge but it doesn't mean that you can't be okay.
Yeah.
You can bounce back and start again. But yeah, it's a battle every day. It's it's really like that, today I'm not going to do this, or today I'm going to make sure that I am healthy, and then, today I'm going to do this too. And
yeah. Another one of my like big inspirations while I was writing this was called a book called I'm Glad My Mom Died, by Jeanette McCurdy. And towards the end, she's in recovery and she's going to therapy and everything, and she learns like her psychiatrist is telling her like a slip is not a slide. So there's a slip where, like it's always going to be there, like you said, and you're going to slip, you're going to fall back into it. And you kind of just have to let it happen and not let it consume you and just let it take over everything and ruin all the progress that you've made. So every time that like I have a slip, I try to tell myself that, and like you have to let yourself forgive yourself for having those moments.
Right.
Almost like you're acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's
Acknowledge,
there.
accept
It's
it,
gonna
and
happen.
move on and get up.
Yeah.
You slip down, you
slip,
get up.
you get back up. Like, yeah. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you. And you too, thank you for sharing, because it is, I think it's important because it makes it okay. It makes you feel better. And like I was talking about like self-image, and it's not necessarily all image, but it's like when you know that people are going through kind of the same things that you are, you're like, oh, I'm not weird.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one. There's, okay, this is, it's not that it's okay, but yeah, it's okay. It's a slip, it's a slide. Let me deal with it. And you deal with it. It's like, you're not the only one going through
You
this.
just don't feel so alone.
You don't feel alone. Yeah, that's the word.
That's like when it becomes a conversation, like you can talk about it and acknowledge it and not feel like you're going to be judged for it because they have experienced the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've never talked this openly about it in like a public space. So
I haven't either. I've only talked it with one friend of mine that we go through the same thing and we kind of like share. But so
when
this is kind of like a little bit, opening a door.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Stepping out of the comfort zone a
Yeah.
little bit.
More.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you find a person in real life that you can talk to about these things, and like you say like the stuff that you experience, and it sounds so silly or crazy or like it's like really really, it feels kind of ridiculous, but then you talk about it with someone else and they have the exact same experience and you're like, oh my God, I'm not crazy.
And I think it's also super important to say, 'cause, I mean, that women, I mean, like, are not the only ones that suffer through this. You know, because like I remember when my kids were little, one of my sons had a friend um, that, you know, extremely, like, also very extremely thin, and like would never eat, and like me knowing, like, he showed to me all the symptoms of having kind of like an eating disorder, and like and kind of anorexic, and so and I mean, I never delve deep into that, but like I also know that it's also very common and prevalent in men, both.
Yeah.
So it's not just but
It's not exclusive to
exactly.
It's
Or
it's
people
mostly
who are
common.
presented
Yeah.
to the world as
It's
are
mostly
received
it's
as
mostly
women.
common in women though.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It
Like
is.
men definitely deal with it, and that should be acknowledged as well. I do believe that.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
common in everyone that worries about their self, somebody that you need self-esteem. It can be an issue
Yeah.
for you, whatever you are.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, eating disorders can be caused by so many things, you know. I have had my fair relationship with food. I have always had a lot of anxiety with everything. I just overthink everything in my life. And I remember during COVID, I was a waitress at this place, and I would forget to eat throughout the day, and then I would get home and just eat a bunch of bread and things that are going to fill me up in 2 seconds, and I would eat like a whole bag of it. Um, I made peace with that kind of past already. But I think when I explored this project, I was like, I'm going to proceed in a very logical way and think about this character from an outsider's perspective. But I felt like I truly understood Esther's pain and the pain that women feel going through something like this. The moment we did the red velvet cake scene,
Yeah.
because I had dealt with a binging, I don't even know how to call it, like
And binge
episode,
eating
like a
disorder.
binging
I mean, that's
disorder.
A thing. Yeah.
And doing that scene really like made me. It was as if I was there all over again, and it was a beautiful experience, but it was also a terrifying experience to re-explore. But it definitely brought out like a lot of vulnerability that I hadn't talked to myself about ever. I kind of left it in the dark and never talked to anyone about that time, because COVID was hard for all of us.
Yeah.
So
So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but you mentioned the documentary Thin, which for me I found it what I feel like very late in the game. Because also, like you mentioned, like when I was looking for inspiration and like research for other films about eating disorders, like it just was not there. Like there was
Right.
nothing. And then after we had filmed, we wrapped everything, I found this documentary, and it was like it was really intense. But I feel like it's the strongest or most accurate representation of eating disorders that I've ever seen. And it's really hard to watch, but it's following girls that are trying to recover from eating
Right.
disorders
Yeah.
in a facility, and we just kind of like the whole time I was watching it, I was just thinking like I'm hearing myself, I'm seeing myself. And I asked you guys if you would watch the documentary as well, and I'm curious to see like what your feelings were, experiences were watching that.
it broke my heart.
Yeah.
Truly, I could not stop crying. Like every moment there was something, and I bawled because I understood that eating disorders are bigger than what people think it is, but I never understood how deep it really was until I saw the documentary Thin. it just hit me that every single person dealt with something differently. And the two specific people that got me the most were this young girl who was 15. That young girl reminded me so much of Esther because she has a controlling mother who also has an eating disorder. And she, in the end of the documentary, her medical bills cannot be covered anymore. She can't stay in the facility to get the help that she needs. And she is still in a very much dark place. And they eventually send her back to live with her mother, who has the eating disorder that makes hers way worse. So it was heartbreaking to see her like try so hard to get better, and then for all that to go back to the one person who makes her feel like crap,
Yeah.
makes her feel fat. She had this obsession with feeling fat and wanting to lose
Like
weight.
rip her skin off.
She
you
wanted
know?
to, yeah, there were moments where you could tell she wanted to rip her skin off, and it was just so heartbreaking. And then the other character was, I think her name was Polly.
Yeah.
Polly, bro. She broke my heart.
I don't know if you know what happened like afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah. That's why it was so hard for me.
She went through so much after she left the facility. It's like she took 10 steps forward and 15 steps back, and that just goes to show, you know, like you can try to get the help you need and stuff, but at the end of the day, you really have to find that willpower to go on, because these women were trying so hard to find the willpower to go on, and some of them really struggled after they left the facility.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Polly
I
was one
think
of them.
that if you put yourself back, and unfortunately for young, I mean, I don't remember. I mean, I saw the documentary. I don't have the stories because I saw it
was
now a while
back,
ago.
Yeah.
But if if you're in a facility and then you go back to the same household that kind of creates the problem and stews the problem, then you're taking 10 steps forward, but you're taking 15 back.
Yeah.
And it's and in order to if you're in a facility and going back, you're really not addressing the problem, because the problem stems from
At home.
what's creating you to do that, and that button, that because you can be okay and you can be in a facility where you don't have those triggers, but whether it's your mom, somebody's comment, whether it's a bully comment, which somebody can comment something, and you if you see yourself a certain way, somebody's and everybody sees you, I don't know, whether you're skinny or whatever, if you see yourself a certain way and somebody makes a comment, and that comment, whether it was meant to be a hurtful comment, if you in your head see yourself in that way, that comment is going to make you spiral out of control. And so it's really important to think when you're talking to somebody, the little, in South America, and we've talked about this, that in South America, I'm from Argentina, when you say somebody, hey, gordita, that's like a term of endearment, but not really. I mean, I've never liked anybody calling me gordita, it's like, don't call me,
Or
whether I
flaca.
am or not, or flaca. I have a friend that for me, she looks great. She's super skinny, but telling her that she's skinny, or telling her that, whatever it is, fat or skinny, that is terrible. I remember somebody telling me, it looks like, whether it looks like you've been feeding yourself or something, whatever it is, something like that. First of all, who cares? That has no, it shouldn't even be addressed.
It's not relevant.
It's not relevant to
at all.
anything.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, those little comments, whether it's skinny, fat, whatever it is, are the little triggers, and they can set you off.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that people who are seeking help need to be surrounded by a community that will help them and inspire them to seek the help. If they go back to where the issue is, you're not really going to make any progress with that. And it's just so sad to know that these women didn't have the resources that they needed to move forward with
Yeah.
with their
Yeah.
help.
In a way, going back to a place that is shaming them
Yeah.
to end up in
Yeah.
to end up probably worse because they were not going to be able to go back to that same facility.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have like a lot of thoughts on um the facility itself versus like home environment and the effect on your eating disorder. But I was curious because me and Kevin watched it yesterday, and I watched it for the second time. You watched it for the first time, but I was wondering what your experience was watching that because I was crying like a baby.
So it was like my first and a half time like watching it. I mean, I don't know in terms of like time markers, like how far I got in. But I remember the first time watching, like I was like in tears. I was like, my heart was broken like the entire time, and I was like on vacation with family, and I was like, I just respectfully need to kind of like step away and maybe revisit this. Um, because like it was just putting me in a place where it was like I was in shambles, kind of reflecting, not that I have like these experiences that I can share so so intimately within these kind of stories, but I'm very like empathetic, like I can feel them going through it, and I can see things that they're not really showing us. So yeah, like they're going back to the environment, but that's not entirely on them, you know, like
course
it raises questions to like the healthcare system and things like that.
Yes.
And it really sucks that as bad as they want it, they're getting pushed back to the place where it's like they're helpless. So it's really like it hurts to see.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The healthcare system has completely failed people over and over again, but especially like these women who are seeking help. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say that like the thing that really was hard for me when I was watching this was because I was kind of in like a dark place already. I was, having my own like slips, back into things, and I watched that and like, yeah, this is a place that's supposed to be healing for them and safe for them, but I know that I could just feel like it felt like a prison. And the way that these professionals, it feels like when you have an eating disorder, there's no like safe place for you. Like you go and you try to find help, but like these people haven't had these experiences that you've had, and they're treating them like
Yeah, and there's a scene in there. It's like I don't know, somewhere in the middle, but it was I think it was when Polly, right before Polly was going to the beach, but the cast were making like jokes about weight. And I was like, that's kind of weird, you know, like they're in this facility trying to treat people who they have trouble dealing with their self-image, and it falls down to reducing their weight in whatever kind of like way possible, and they're just making jokes like when they're not around.
yeah.
And there's like a sign in there that says quiet, like, you know, like people could be listening. It's like,
Right.
yeah, but at the same time, like it kind of just questions like the whole integrity and morals of like the people that are in the healthcare system. No, like disrespect. I'm sure there's a lot of like great people who are really like wanting to help others, but you know, for some people, it's also just a job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a job, and they're there, and they may care for the individual, but yeah, not as it's the paycheck.
Yeah, and they're dealing with such delicate situations, but they don't really have the sensitivity to it all. Like it's very cold. I think Shelley said like you come to this place and you give up all the control that you thought you had. And like, yeah, eating disorders, you feel like you're completely out of control, and maybe in your home environment you also feel that way, but then you come here and you are stripped of your control completely. And when I was watching this, I was like, man, so like I can't get better here, and I don't think I could possibly get better in one of these places. What is the option there? Like what's next? And then I finally finished reading the book, I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I was trying to I was in a dark place. That film is like hardcore. And I got to the end, and she said something that really resonated with me. She says, "I think of Mom. I don't want to become her. I don't want to live off chewy granola bars and steamed vegetables. I don't want to spend my life restricting and dog-earing Woman's World fad diet pages. Mom didn't get better, but I will." And I read that, like, Mom didn't get better, but I will. And it was the first moment that I felt like hope from somebody who was going through the same things, because like you said, it's something that is always going to follow you. But and yeah, I'm going back and forth, like, I can't get better here, I can't get better there, but really, like, if I want to get better at all, like, it has to come from my own, like,
from within.
not giving up on myself.
And I think it also has to, like, what needs to come is acceptance of you. And this is, you, and then you have your body. And it's like acceptance of that.
But also forgiveness.
And and forgiving yourself for what you're putting yourself through, because
I feel like
it's
that's the first step. Forgiveness is the first step to the beginning of healing in any situation. Yeah.
But going back to like where do you heal? Maybe the correct answer or a good answer is have somebody to talk to, a therapist, whatever. It doesn't have to be in a center. It just has to be somebody that can guide you to forgiving yourself and accepting yourself. And that can be really in anywhere, not necessarily in a center. So it could even be a Zoom thing, or there's a lot of ways that people are dealing. And I wish I could remember. I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was the person was talking about, like, she goes to college, or when she went to college, she got help in, like, colleges. They have like therapy, and it's usually free, or counselors to their students. And whatever she was going through, which it wasn't nothing of this, but whatever she was going through, she got help through the school. So, I mean, whether it's a school or a work or whatever, but like there is other, probably counselors that can help you get into your forgiveness and get into your, like, road to healing and just getting better.
Hi again. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end and listening to part 1 of our podcast. Part 2 will be coming very soon, and we have some other cool stuff coming your way as well. If you are able to attend, the film is going to be screening at Filmgate Horror Festival October 30th, so I hope to see you there. I hope that if you are able to watch the film, that you enjoy it and that it resonates with you. And I hope that you're able to enjoy all the hard work that the crew put into the film. It really was a labor of love from so many people. And I'm unbelievably appreciative of everybody who participated in this film and supported this film in any way, shape, or form. So again, thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you have a really, really nice rest of your day.